So tell me the name of your business here local.
Sure. Yeah. No, my company that I own with my wife is the Brunner Sierra Group, and she is a forensic accountant and with her CPA, and she does forensic litigation support with attorneys, providing them their litigation support. So she conducts the forensic accounting investigations. So she looks at the paperwork. So the attorneys might have a client, or a client may come to us and say, "Listen, I don't know what all this means. I've got a lot of financial documents and bank records." So she'll take all those documents, make it make sense, and then provide the answer to the client. And if a lawyer is requesting your services, they'll have the lawyer will give us, hey, here's all these 50,000 pages of documents. Translate this for me. How does it affect my client? And then they'll have her testify up on the stand. So she does the forensic accounting litigation support. And then I provide security consulting for high net worth individuals, private families, family offices.
Okay. And the security that you're doing, like what kind of security is that?
So it's security consulting. So I'll provide them. So a client will come to me and say, listen, is my house safe? And I'll do a complete walkthrough of the house, look at, everything that's secured. And if there's cameras, if there's an alarm system, what the vulnerabilities are. They know a lot about making money. I don't. But I know how to make them safe.
Mm-hmm.
So creating a hard target around themselves starting at the home, cybersecurity, along these things. I may not be an expert in some of these things, but I know a lot of people in my Rolodex. For a lot of your listeners, Rolodex is our phone book from back in the day, back in the 1900s. So what we'll do is I'll reach out to somebody. So if I need cybersecurity, I've got a guy up at Big Sky. I've got other FBI agents. And if I need executive protection, bodyguards, canine, I have a lot of people I can reach out to, thus giving that to the high net worth person, the family, and securing them. And then I'm on call for them. If they need me to run a background check on a new employee, they need me to do, security check, travel, and, check on the, where they're going to be going. Or if they need me to, continuously provide security services to them, whether it be cybersecurity, alarm system, cameras. I work with a lot of different companies and bringing everything together for the client.
And is that all over the country, local here to Montana?
No, it's all over the world. I've had clients in Israel, in California, so that doesn't. I have no problem traveling. I mean, I speak Spanish fluently.
Mm-hmm.
My parents are from South America, from Chile and Argentina. So I travel to Latin America. I have clients in Latin America. And a lot of these clients have me on retainer, on call, and say, I'm not there for them every single minute, every single day. I'm not a chief security officer. That's a full-time job. You're staying with the client. I'm there for them when they call me and say, hey, I need this. Or their executive assistant calls me and says, hey, this is going to happen. Can you take care of this? Absolutely, got it. They get my cell phone. They're able to call me directly.
And you said Spanish is your first language?
Actually, yeah, Spanish is my first language. I was raised speaking Spanish. I grew up in upstate New York,
Mm-hmm.
and my parents, that you would know, again, like my English is like I'm, Native American. Their English is also, but they knew I would learn English out in school. So they made sure that my sister and I spoke Spanish in the home all the time. That was the only language we could speak in our home. If we have somebody who doesn't speak Spanish, we turn it right immediately to English. And that still stays to this day. So if my sister and I, or my mom and I, alone in a room, I go straight to Spanish. If someone else walks in the room, we turn it right to English.
Yeah, it's got to throw people off because you have such fluent, like you'd never know
Right.
that English was not your first
And
language.
that was beneficial for me in my career as an FBI agent in New Jersey. Most of my career, I did 12 years investigating Hispanic organized crime. So MS-13, Tren de Aragua, the Mexican cartels, those were a lot of my cases, my investigations. So I use that to my advantage because I would sit across from El Salvadorians, Hondurans, gang members who grew up on the streets in New Jersey or grew up in El Salvador and came here to the United States, obviously illegally as a gang member, and they would be completely thrown off when I sat down and started talking, very good Spanish to them. And it wasn't like that I learned it in high school or I wasn't even using a translator. So for them, it was shocking. And that's the shock and awe that I needed when I would sit down with these gang members. Not only I would shock them that I could speak Spanish, but then I would double shock them and saying, I actually know what I'm talking about when it comes to MS-13, the hierarchy, the structure, how they are communicating and things like that. And they would really break it down. And then that actually ended up being very, very beneficial in my career, and having different sources, informants, or breaking somebody who was, had been arrested, and having them understand that they're going to have to plead guilty or face life in prison.
That makes complete sense. There's probably so many nuances within the language and just little idiosyncrasies that you do not know. Hi, folks. Quick note from me. If you don't already know, the goal of Mountain Mule Media is to build real connection between Montana's businesses and the people they serve. If this episode or any other has given you something worth thinking about, smiling at, or passing along, I've got a small ask. Share it with a friend, text it to someone, post it in your story. That one simple action helps these businesses get seen, grow, and thrive, and it helps this show keep going. Thank you for supporting these Montana businesses. Now back to the show.
Every country has their own, take on it. So Argentina has an accent versus Chilean accent. So my accent is, I'd say it's 60% Argentinian accent to Chilean, but yet it's not pure. I still, people from both countries, I still have family down there, and they'll hear me. They'll see that I'm not pure Argentinian. I'm not pure Chilean. It's a mixture, but yet I'm also a little bit of like, and I've had people say, listen, I know you're not from Argentina. I know you're not from Chile, but I have no idea where you learned Spanish. But in every other country where you go to, Colombia, Venezuela, Honduras, El Salvador, each one of them have their own idiosyncrasies, their own accents, their own ways, and then dive even deeper that on the street language, the street Spanish that they have. So MS-13, they have their own slang. They have their own lingo. So I would never pretend to be from El Salvador. I would never pretend to be one of them, but I would bring my Spanish down because it's very South American, very clean, very proper. But I would kind of slow it down a little bit so I could communicate with them. But the fact that I could, in the Hispanic community, when they encounter somebody that is not of their culture, so somebody who's white, black, but not someone of the Hispanic culture, and they speak Spanish, they really open up to that. They really are grateful to be able to communicate, because a lot of them don't speak English in the MS-13 community. They don't speak English, so it worked out to its a big benefit for me.
Is it akin in any way to say, someone's from Australia, their English? Like the noticeable difference here is it that noticeable, those nuances within South America?
Well, so a native Spanish speaker can hear a Spanish speaker and say, they could identify, oh, that person's from Spain, from Barcelona, or they're Argentinian or Uruguayan. So each one of those regions have their own dialect. Somebody who doesn't speak Spanish probably would have a tough time saying, okay, that's Argentine. That for them, it's just Spanish.
Yeah.
So a little different.
Where'd you grow up in upstate New York?
Syracuse.
Okay, so I grew up in Dutchess County, Hudson Valley.
Okay.
And people say to me when they meet me out here, you don't sound like you're from New York.
Yeah.
There's very, if you grew up in the Bronx or Yonkers, it's going to sound much different than if you grew up upstate.
Oh yeah, no. So I did 20 years in New Jersey FBI. So I was 20 years in New Jersey, and then every now and then, if I get really excited when I'm watching sports or something like that, or I get upset, the Jersey comes out of me. So I have a little bit. My wife definitely, she's from Jersey. She's from Edison, New Jersey. So she definitely gets, when she gets very animated, she gets excited, the Jersey comes out in her. You can hear the accent.
Yeah, my fiance is from Massachusetts. I don't hear it in her parents. I really hear that, that
right.
Massachusetts, Boston, whatever you want to call that.
Right.
But it's very interesting. There's the little nuances within the same state.
Yeah.
Depending on where you are.
Yep.
Your guys' event that's in Montana this summer, I know that's one reason you came to talk about that.
Yeah, I'm excited. We're excited about. So I'm hosting. I'm the chairman of the inaugural FBI Agents Association Big Sky G-Man Golf Classic. We're going to be hosting it at Riverside Country Club on June 15th of this year, 2026. We've been working on it for 6 months now. So the FBI Agents Association. So I don't know if your listeners know. So a government employee, U.S. government employee, cannot be part of a union. They can't be unionized. So a number of years ago, the FBI Agents Association was created by FBI agents, special agents, to represent the interests of both active and retired special agents towards Congress, whether it be pensions, salary, health benefits. They just represent the interests of it. We're not union. We're not, not all together, because not only we're law enforcement, but, we're a special category, but they represent it. Within the FBI Agents Association, there are two foundations. One is the Memorial College Fund. So if any agent goes down in the line of duty, the Agents Association will come in and pay for the college tuition for the children of the agent that was fallen. Excuse me. And they'll pay for the college tuition for all the children if he's killed in the line of duty, he or she. There's another one which is called the Membership Assistance Fund, MAF. So the Membership Assistance Fund is if an agent runs into financial turmoil, difficulties, a death in the family, an unexpected illness, they can come to the Agents Association, or the Agents Association will come to them without them asking and provide them a check out of the MAF saying, here's $1,000, here's $5,000, $10,000. Doesn't have to go towards medical costs. You don't have to use it. It's just to let you breathe. And that's what we're going to be playing for. That's what we're going to be raising funds for the MAF, to support the agents that are, unforeseen circumstances. And it provides, by giving them the foundations of the MAF, it not only helps the families, but it also helps literally the national security of this country. Because one of the things our adversaries are constantly looking for is a government employee who's in financial distress, due to a divorce, a death in the family. They're looking for that so they can exploit that. So by providing the MAF, we're actually protecting national security as well, because that individual, that special agent, doesn't need to worry about it. They don't need to they can breathe a little bit. So next year, across the country, there are 17. So there's a lot of ways that the Agents Association raises funds for these two foundations. Golf tournaments is one of the biggest. And across the country, there are 17 other golf tournaments held throughout the year on an annual basis. New York, Virginia, Florida, California, Texas. And I've been here for a couple of years now, and I wanted to give something back to the FBI agents. That I was a street agent for 20 years. I never left the streets. I never became a boss. I was very proud of staying on the streets. I turned down promotions because I enjoyed working the cases. So I wanted to give back to the agents that are still on the streets, that are still working out there. And providing them this support is really important for me. So, I'm a member at Riverside, and I approached the Riverside Country Club leadership, sat down with them, proposed this to them last year, and they were very enthusiastic about hosting this. So we're in the planning stages now, and we're, using a NASCAR term, we're in turn 3 here. We're preparing for the final turn here. We got lots of great sponsors that are coming in. We've got sponsors that are both here in Bozeman, in Montana, and from around the country. So we've got a company, from out in Connecticut. We've got a Eagle Security Company, which is an FBI-led, company that's out in Virginia. They've sponsored. So we got tons of great. The R Bars supporting us. Mountain Mule is going to be supporting us as well. We're very excited about Mountain Mule providing transportation for our guests from the Element Hotel, they're sponsoring, and the Marriott Residence Inn. We'll have guests flying in, so they will be there. So they'll get transportation from Mountain Mule. Super excited about that. And then we've got tons of other sponsors that are, either sponsoring a whole or larger sponsors, which are going to be sponsoring, a larger position and sponsorship. And then obviously we got lots of room for live auction items, which we're so excited. We really want to work with local companies to get us to provide support. Scout Guide is helping us. Valerie Edwards at Scout Guide is fantastic. She's going to be helping us out. And we're, like I said, we're getting lots of great live auction items. We're only doing 3 live auction and tons of silent auction. Lucchese boots. They provided a gift certificate for $500. We're going to raffle that. So the plan is, and I understand everybody who comes to these charity events, and it's just charity event after charity event after charity event, and they're all great causes. What I don't want is I don't want people to walk away from going, All right, that was another charity event. I want people walking away from this going, that was a fun day. So that's what we're planning. We're going to have golf all morning, and then in the afternoon, we're going to have a helicopter coming in. We're going to be doing a ball drop. We're going to have lots of different games available there to play, to win prizes. And it's going to be a very casual cocktail hour from 3 to 5, and then a buffet dinner there at Riverside. Seats are only going to be $100 to come in. That'll be enough to cover to cover the cost of the meal, and then a little bit, maybe a few dollars that'll go towards the Agents Association. My goal here is obviously to raise funds, but more importantly is to present a great event so that the coming years, the second annual, third annual, fourth annual, people will come back and say, that was a great event last year. I want to come back. So that's what we're excited about. June 15th, we're going to be doing that. And on June 14th, that night, we're going to be holding an event at the R Bar. So R Bar is kind enough to work with FBI Agents Association leadership. Natalie Barra, she's the president of the Agents Association. She's coming in with other FBI agents who are both active and retired. I am sure that the agents here in Bozeman are going to be coming. Agents are going to be coming up from Salt Lake City, from Utah. So it's going to be a great event. We're super excited about it.
Is there sponsors you're still looking for, or anything in particular that you guys haven't found yet, or that you need specifically?
Yeah, so we're looking for anybody. Anybody who wants to sponsor. We're still we just sold last night. We sold the seventh hole to Seven Sushi and Bitterroot Bistro. So we're very good. We're very close with them, and they reached out to me and they said they wanted to do a whole sponsor. So we gave them the seventh hole. So we have whole sponsorships available. We have obviously and everything can be found at our website, which is FBIAA BSGGC. So FBIAA Big Sky G-Man Golf Classics, just the letters FBIAA. And I'll provide it here, and I'll link it, here at this, and I'll get you the link in the website. Everything is done through the website. We have sponsorship availability at the premier level, which is, and then we have 4 other top level premier sponsorships. Each one of those sponsorships gets a foursome automatic. After that, there's availability for cocktail hour, for the lunch, for dinner. So there's lots of little opportunities. The third hole, we've already, par 3 holes. We have 4 of them, and we believe we've spoken for 2 of them. One is going to be a car sponsor, which we're hoping to lock in here pretty soon. And the other one is a golf store, which we're going to lock that one in soon. So they'll get that one. So lots of fun things. And it's a great opportunity for people. And I'm creating, this is not just, I want to raise funds. This is, people are going to walk away with a lot of, we have a swag bag that every golfer is going to get, and it's going to be great. We have great sponsors. They're going to put their sponsorships in the swag bag, and then every third hole they're going to have an opportunity that the golfer is going to be able to do. We have 2 companies that are coming in for long drivers, a long drive contest. So golfers that drive 450, 480 yards. And so they're going to be coming in and playing contests with the golfers. So it's going to be a fun day.
And remind me, after making a few notes of a few people I can make intros to you for, if I
that'd be great. Yeah, anything. Listen, I'm not looking. It's I'd love to have sponsors. I'd love to, but I'd love to. For me, just as important is silent auction. I'm looking to get we're working with a couple jewelry shops downtown that they're looking at. I know a spa is going to be for. So we not just. We have. Montana Tactical is going to provide. They're sponsoring a gift item. So we don't want all just guns and the FBI. This is an event which we're gonna the ladies are going to have items, the men are going to have items. So it's going to be a great event. That and so sponsorships or silent auction items, I'll take anything they want, and we'd be greatly appreciative.
Very cool. So can you speak to your career in the FBI? And I know we could go all over the place with this. I'm curious what, given your background, and I hear different things, rumors, and as we kind of talked earlier, I'm a little bit under a rock with everything.
Right.
But what does the drug, say, cartel and stuff look like here in this local area? And that was a very, I think a very busy part of your career in New
Right.
York.
Yeah. So listen, a lot has changed in the last year. So my career was all 20 years in New Jersey, all of them. And I spent 4 years in international terrorism and then 4 years in domestic terrorism, which was going after white supremacy groups in New Jersey, which is shockingly, New Jersey is one of the worst in the country. I think they're ranked 6th or 7th now for having the white supremacy groups, which are skinheads, Klan, those type of things.
Do you know much about is it Coeur d'Alene? Wasn't there a big presence in Coeur d'Alene? I think in years past with
I
skinheads and stuff.
heard
Yeah,
something about that. I think that was
I just spoke.
Aryan Nation.
I spoke with
It was
someone that
Aryan
grew up
Nation.
there, and she
Yeah.
said there was parades and stuff. When she was
Yes.
a kid.
So I've seen movies and I've read books, and yes, there was. I think the Aryan Nation compound was up there. So I know of it, but like I said, yeah, but yes, I've heard that there was a presence there.
Yeah, and I interrupted you. So.
No, it's totally fine. That's the whole point of having the conversation. And then I got shifted over to after I had I was diagnosed with a brain tumor, so I was benched for a couple months while that recovered from the surgery. And then after I came back from taking a couple months off, I met in that summertime right before the surgery, I met my girlfriend now / wife, Christine, and then when I went back to work, I approached, I'd had 8 years on the job at that point, and I approached my bosses and said, I'd like to work, on the criminal side. I want to use my Spanish. So they moved me over to the gang unit, and within 2 weeks, I was there. The agent that was working MS-13, she was transferring.
Hey folks, Tim here with Mountain Mule. I've got a quick announcement I wanted to tie in here. I'm excited this year, 2026, this spring, summer. We are officially going to start doing park tours through Yellowstone Park. These will be day tours starting in Bozeman, drop offs ending back in Bozeman. And we can probably still customize that outside of the Bozeman area, meaning pickups in Big Sky, pickups in West Yellowstone, or any of the surrounding areas. We're building out the program now, so there'll be lots of updates coming through, but please keep us in mind if you've used us for transportation in the past. We expect to deliver the same quality of service, and we're excited to be able to expand what we're doing and have a busier summer for the teams. Look forward to seeing you out there.
So they literally went up to me and said, here's this group called MS-13. Didn't know much about it, but that was my beginning. And from there, I never looked back. MS-13 was quite a big presence in New Jersey. I worked 2 major investigations in New Jersey. Both of them had to go to trial. In 2015, yes, 2000. How my kids? Yeah, it was the summer of 2015. We went to trial with 8 defendants. It was one of the biggest trials in New Jersey's history. So 8 defendants out of Plainfield, New Jersey. So one of the things where I worked was called RICO, racketeering, which is a large-scale, complex investigation that dismantles an organization from the inside out. So that constitutes it's basically, the best way to put it is it's like a 10,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, and that's how you put it together. And it's putting it all together, figuring out the organization, how do they support each other. And RICO was created back in the 70s to dismantle organized crime, the mob, and that they used those same charges, those federal crimes, against criminal organizations like MS-13, the Bloods, Crips. So if I could prove that an individual was conducting a crime on behalf of the gang to bolster himself within the gang or to bolster the credibility of that gang, if he was doing that crime on behalf of the gang, that could be a racketeering. So I needed to find 2 predicate charges. So in other words, 2 different events that individual conducted to bolster the gang. For example, 2015, a homicide happened in West New York, New Jersey. They shot a kid in the back of the head. So we ended up arresting 9 individuals. 3 of them were part of the conspiracy where they talked about, hey, let's murder. That's charge 1, because they were murdering him because he was talking to an opposition gang. So they didn't like that. So they were murdering him because they wanted to show their presence of MS-13 in Union City, New Jersey. And by murdering him, by talking about and planning it, that's the conspiracy to commit murder. Then the act of the murder was murder in the aid of racketeering. That's the two charges that I needed. And then obviously there was much more that other charges we found. But if I was able to take them to court in what I did in 2021, we ended up going to trial. They were found guilty and they were sentenced to one. There's only one sentence for murder in the aid of racketeering. It's mandatory life. And they went to jail for life.
And that was, you said 3 were charged on that?
No, 9 were charged, 3 went to trial. The other 6 ended up taking a deal because they were like, they saw. So what the FBI, I won't speak of how they are now because I've been gone 2 years, but how we used to work, especially for RICOs, and the Department of Justice does not want to work RICOs anymore. They've told the United States attorneys and their FBI agents, stop working RICOs now, today, in 2026, in 2025. Why? That's up to the administration. They made that decision. But before then, when they work RICOs, RICO cases, you would you'd look at the whole of it, and then what you would do is charge it and then try and get them to flip. So you charge it, and when you work with the United States Attorney's Office, when you go to trial, the FBI typically does not go to trial unless it's a slam dunk. So we have such overwhelming evidence that they have no chance to win. Okay. So that's the overwhelming evidence would be collected. And then when the individual is arrested, taken into custody, they'd be shown, there would be it would call a show and tell. We have their attorney there and we literally show them a sliver, maybe 5% of the evidence, and say, listen, we've got this right here. This is overwhelming. Just this 5%. We have a whole truckload of other evidence. And hopefully that 5%. Or, we're going to convict you. We will convict you, and you're going to do 30 to 40 years. If you were the shooter, you're going to do life. Or you can cut a deal and plead guilty. And then you'll get a reduced sentence of 25 years instead of life. Or you can cooperate with us, tell us everything you know, who did what, and then testify in court. Then that sentence will be, could be reduced even more by the judge. So that would be the few levels that we would get people to cooperate, and it worked very well. In the first RICO, I had 13 defendants. One of them we never got; he's still in El Salvador. But 13 defendants, 5 of them took pleas. 4 of them took a plea deal. 8 went to trial, and then the 13th member was on the run. Once we completed that trial, the United States Attorney's Office said, go forth. We've found them all guilty. Go find that last one. I put him on the 10 most wanted, and then in April of 2017, we put him on the 10 most wanted. Walter Giovanni Gomez. So he was the 513th individual captured. And he was captured August of 2017.
Okay. And so the definition of that, what you're calling RICO, is when you're getting them to then flip other people, essentially?
No, the RICO, the racketeering is the type of investigation.
Okay.
That's the overarching. It's just racketeering. And that's the term of like, hey, they're working together as an organization, whether it be Italian mob, MS-13. The racketeering is what they're doing. The racketeering. They're working together as an organization to bring this criminal organization higher. That's it. And then we use that against them. That's why when I would sit down with the bad guys, we'll just call them bad guys, and I would never, ever play the FBI badge until the very last minute. Because, be honest with you, Frank, the gang members were not afraid of cops, local, state, and local, because they knew if they got a charge, it would be a minor charge. They may do a couple months in jail and they'll be out. They were terrified of the feds. They were terrified of the FBI. So I knew whenever I sat there and I would sit behind the glass and the states or the locals had somebody, and state and locals were some of my best friends. I would never be able to do any of my investigations if it wasn't for state and local law enforcement in New Jersey. They were the best. So the relationships I had with them, loved working with them. and I think they loved working with me. So they would call me and they say, "Hey, we just got this guy," and I'd come down and watch it, watch them talk to him. And if I saw that there was a glimmer that I could break him, then I would come into the room and I'd lay down, and then I'd start talking. I'd lay down the badge. That was the first knock. Then I start talking Spanish, and that was the second knock. And then I would start talking and telling them things that I already knew about them. I wouldn't sit down with somebody that I didn't know everything about. And I'd start asking them questions that I already knew the answer to, but I'm seeing if they're going to be honest with me. And then I would know, and then boom, 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 and then just boom. And then that's how I would either get an informant, or I'd get them to be, somebody who would testify and provide us all the secrets.
This, you said it was, the murder was 2015 and they were convicted in 21. So this is a pretty long.
Correct. Well, you also have to take in fact COVID. So we arrested in 2015. This is why RICOs are so complicated. I arrested and took them in custody in 2015 on just a minor federal charge. We wanted to get them off the streets. They had already murdered somebody, so we wanted them off the streets. So we took them into custody on the minor charge. The courts, we presented our what we had, our investigation thus far to date, and the courts agreed no bail. So they were held without bail in federal prison in New Jersey. At that point, we started the in-depth RICO investigation, where we started literally taking one person at a time, collecting pieces of evidence from 2015 to 2018. It was a 3-year investigation. 2018, we did what's called a superseding indictment, where we gave them the crux of it all, everything that we'd collected, everybody we had talked to, every piece of evidence we'd collected over the years. It literally was going down to, so one of my, my partner that I worked with, and I worked throughout all my investigations, we were able to determine that one of the individuals that they had plotted to murder another individual. They'd gotten into a car with him, and they'd stayed the night near the Lincoln Tunnel at a motel there before heading to South Jersey to murder him. He figured out that they were about to murder him, so he jumped out of actually a rolling car as they were getting off the exit on the Garden State Parkway. He jumped out of the car and ran into the woods and was able to escape. But yet, we had gotten one of the people that was in that car to talk to us. We were able to convince him to talk to us, and he told us the entire story. He told us about the motel near the Lincoln Tunnel. We then went to that motel and said, "Do you have the receipt from 3 years ago when they stayed here?" And he literally opened a door and said, "Here it is." And he had all hard copies, nothing digital. And this is a motel in New Jersey near the Lincoln Tunnel. And everything was and we just started going through one piece at a time, one little piece of paper, because we had the general time, but we didn't know the exact date, because this had happened years ago. So we literally going painstakingly, and we found that one piece where he had Xerox copied the driver's license of one of the individuals in the car. We got that copy, and that was presented as evidence to coincide, because that individual was now giving us that information, telling us about that hit. And we were going to present the evidence to court to corroborate what he was saying. So he was saying, "Hey, listen, he's saying this, and here's the physical proof to prove what he's saying is correct. Just don't take his word for it. We'll give you the physical evidence to corroborate that. And then we'll go even further to provide a second witness to corroborate what that first witness." And that literally is just all it is layer after layer after layer. And that's the United States Attorney's Office figuring out how to move that chess piece and getting those, each individual witness to testify correct in the right manner, and saying, what he has to say in the truth. And that's all that matters. But we need to corroborate that with physical evidence.
And that's how this becomes a multi-year process.
Yeah. And it's, so we superseding indictment in 2018, and we were ready to go to trial in 2019, and then COVID hit, and that shut us down for, a couple of years. They weren't doing trials. And then in 2021, we finally went back to trial, and all 3 individuals were convicted. And I believe they've been sentenced. I don't know for sure, but all 3 were sentenced to mandatory life. So.
And when you're in this position, are you fully undercover? Or are you not undercover at all? Because I know you're in security. What's your process now? I know you went on trial and people.
Yeah, no, I've had 2 death threats against me, both of them by MS-13 while I was in New Jersey back in the day. But they were both mitigated with, they were taken care of before they actually followed through with the death threat. Um, and here's the thing: is in in the law enforcement community, it is a it is a very bad thing to go after a federal law enforcement, to go after an FBI agent, because the FBI comes down like Thor's hammer on them, and they know they don't go after FBI agents. There's been rare occasions, yes, that there have been threats or that actually they've followed through with an attempted hit, but it never ends. It never ends well for them, attempting that. I just take care of myself. I know, I'm pretty aware of myself. I keep a nice security. I have 2 German shepherds that, walk around my house. And an alarm system, I still, train with my firearm. I still to this day, and I'll never stop. And, I never fully keep my guard down, but yet at the time I don't live in a sense of fear. So I'm cautious. Do I believe that, the groups will come after me? I don't think so. But I don't fully, live down that. It brings me a sense of comfort that I'm protecting not only myself, more importantly, my wife and my kids. That's much more important than my life, is my wife and my kids. So making sure that they're safe and secure by doing everything I need to do, not only what I'm giving my clients, but also, protecting my own house.
Yeah, I've got a martial arts background. I train at a MMA gym here in town, and they do
Hmm.
a lot of stuff with self-defense. They work with a lot of law enforcement. I know the Gallatin sheriffs, and we've done specific stuff, knife training and that
Hmm.
kind of stuff. And I do almost wonder. I'm very grateful for all the training I have and the information. It almost does seem like there's a type of person who almost brings upon all the situations
Yeah.
because they hyper fixate and they're hyper paranoid. And
Hmm.
it sounds like you've got a good balance of you're
Yeah.
aware, but you're not.
And that's what I tell my clients is I don't want them to live in fear. I don't want them to live in a prison. I want them to live their lives. But I create such here's the thing is, if you're targeted by someone, okay, there's there's a lot we can do to protect them. But if someone really wants to get to you and they're willing to give their life for it, it'll be a tall mountain that they have to climb. If it's just a random, you know, someone who wants to home invasion, someone wants to rob you, someone wants to steal your car, they're going to look at the target, and I create a hard target around them, around that house, around that family, so that the person that wants to do the robbery, wants to do the assault, robbery, rob the car, will look at it and go, "Man, that's a tall mountain I have to climb. Well, I'll go down to the next house where they don't have dogs, where they don't have an alarm system, where they don't have cameras." I just create layers, visible layers around the house. You know, put an alarm sign right at the end of your driveway, so that's the first thing they see. Have your cameras, right there at the driveway, right at the front door, with the blue light showing, "Hey, there's a camera here." I tell people, if you order DoorDash, don't answer the door. Leave it. I tell them very clearly instructions. Don't have them ring the bell. Just leave it at the door, because there have been known people where they're going to do a home invasion when you open the door and you greet the DoorDash person. Listen, 95% of DoorDash drivers, I'm sure, are wonderful people, and they're not the criminals. But there's that small one. There's that small 1, 2, 3% that are. Oh, when you open the door, they're looking in. They're saying, "Okay, are there dogs? Okay, it's a older woman. Okay, I see the big TV. Okay, they got money here," and they're conducting their own surveillance. That's how they're doing it. We know that it's happening in across this country. So I just tell people to say, "Listen, don't live in fear. Just live your life, but be cautious
Yeah.
and prepared."
And I asked you earlier, and if pardon me if you said you didn't want to cover this, but all that. Do you know much about the drug stuff locally here? If there's a lot of that going on.
I've had it understood that there are 2 cartels here in the region. One is called CJNG, which is Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación, New Generation cartel out of Jalisco, Mexico, and Sinaloa is the other cartel. That's what I've heard. I am not an investigator. I do not work with the sheriff's department. I do not work with Bozeman PD, or no, I don't work with the FBI. That's just based on what I've read online, and my educated, you know, being. I've seen signs around town.
Mm-hmm.
I see it. I see them a lot less now, a year later since the Trump administration, but there's still things that make me, aware that they're here. So they're here in town. And I don't want to get too much into it, because if there is an active investigation being, run by the sheriff's department or Bozeman PD or the FBI, if I say something that I know that they would tip off the cartels or the
Yeah.
gangs here, that would, tip them off of how I know that, which means the local PD, local sheriff's department, they would, that would jeopardize their investigation. So I'm not going to comment on how I know, but I've seen them here in town. The gangs are here. Tren de Aragua, TDA is here in town. They're in the state. MS-13 is in Billings. I don't believe they're here in Bozeman. So yes, the criminal elements are here. They've come up here, and they're taking advantage of our community, and especially the reservations, the Native American population. They're taking advantage of those on the reservation too, and the protection that they have.
Yeah. I don't know, there's, in a lot of senses, it's nice here how peaceful it is and how much your guard is down, but that's where people can take advantage of stuff as well.
Correct, and that's one of the things I tell people is saying, listen, Bozeman is, I fell in love with Bozeman years ago, and I grew up skiing out west in Connecticut or Colorado, Utah, all around here. I grew up skiing, ever since I was 3 years old. So when we bought our place years ago out here, I knew that I was retiring in the summer of 23. So we bought out here years ago, knowing that this is where we're going to end up. I wanted my kids growing up here. But I think one of the problems with the current community here is, and it's not a problem, but people still believe that Bozeman is so far away from the real world that they're safe. That, well, we don't have to lock our front door. We don't have to lock our cars. Yeah, you do. You do have to lock your front door. It's not 2010 anymore. It's now 2026. People have come here, whether they be from California, Texas, Washington, New Jersey. There are and people that came from south of the border. Now, one thing I'm very, very clear about, and I'm very adamant about this, we had millions of people come across the border during the Biden administration. 12 to 15 million is what they estimated. 90% of them are good people. They're good people here to work and here for manual labor work. Did they commit a crime crossing the border illegally? Yes, they committed a crime. But they're not, the cartels. There's 10% of that are the cartels, gangs, people who are here for nefarious reasons. That's a small percentage. So 90% of the immigrant community in this country are good people working really hard. So, and I don't want, like I said, I don't want to say that every Hispanic person here in the Bozeman area is part of the cartels or gangs. So that for me is very important because, like I said, coming from an immigrant family myself, but I see the numbers of how they came across during the Biden administration, and that was, disturbing. It was difficult.
No, it's a good point to make, though, to not just generalize.
Correct.
So, what's your perspective on life and everything after this long career in and you were military prior to FBI?
Right. 9 years in the Navy. I was in Mayport, Florida for 5 years, and I was at the Naval Academy for 3 years as an instructor there at the Naval Academy. So go Navy, beat Army. I love that. For me, the Army Navy game is one of the best football games. And I mean, listen, that our last, the last Cat Grizz 2.0 was without a doubt for me top 5 of all time sporting events that I've been to. Cat Grizz 2.0. It was just from the tailgate to the game to that ending. It was just outstanding. But there's very few things that can match an Army Navy game. I remember my very first Army Navy game was in 1999. That was the year I got stationed at the Naval Academy. And I went to the Army Navy game, and Navy was 0-9, 0 wins, 9 losses. Army was 1-8. Okay. Two worst teams in NCAA football. And you wouldn't know. That stadium was packed. That stadium was like it was a Super Bowl. You had flyovers, you had parachuting. It was amazing. And that was my first Army Navy game. I've been to 16 of them since then. And it's just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And there's nothing, like I said, for me, Army Navy game is one of the I've been to a World Series. Never been to a Super Bowl, but I've been to a lot of NFL games. Like I said, the Army Navy game was spectacular. So I loved my military career. I loved serving. And now this is my next chapter in my life. And I am so grateful to be where I'm at right now in my life because, my wife and we met later in life. I was 39, she was 38, and we had our kids when we were in our early 40s. Most FBI agents are in their 20s, early 30s, having, families. So throughout their career, so you were eligible to retire when you're 50 years old, mandatory at 57, as long as you've done 20 years. I hit 50. I was 50 years old and had 20 years when I was in the same year in 2023. A lot of agents are starting their families in their 30s. So they're not there as much for their kids because we had work, we had search warrants, we had arrest warrants, we had travel. So it's difficult for them. And that's part of their life. I am, on the other hand, I am now got younger kids and I'm there for them. I get to be there. I get to wake up at 6 a.m. I'm so happy. Again, I'm so grateful to be there at 6 a.m., make them breakfast, drive them to school every day, and then pick them up and take them to SBG Jiu-Jitsu, and then take them to cheerleading over at Motion Athletics, and then running them around. I get to be there for every concert at school. I get to be there for everything. And that is so grateful to have that gift in my life because I finished my 29 years working for the government. And now this is what for me, a lot of people are like, who you are, I wasn't an FBI agent. I was an FBI agent for 20 years, but who am I? This is what I was preparing for. The Navy helped me get to be the FBI. FBI helped me get to be where I'm at now. And this is what I am. This is my life, is helping raise my kids, getting them there. And then, Christine is spectacular. She gets to be there right next to me. We're a team. I wouldn't want anybody else there next to me. We share an office. I see her every day in our house. And I know how we talked to a couple other people who are like, I worked from home for like 2 days and, there with my wife. And then I was like, I got to get out of here. I wouldn't want it the other way. So I am so grateful to be here. And then having this community here is spectacular. We've been welcomed here. We've worked, so well with companies like Montana Mule and getting them, and Scout Guided with Valerie over there. And it's just, getting Brunner Sierra Group to provide and give back to the community. And that's what we want. So we're super, both of us are super happy, super grateful, and, couldn't have it any other way.
That's so cool that that afforded you this opportunity with your kids and your
Yeah.
family now. And
No.
did the experience of being in the FBI long or the military, anything like what perspective does that give you on people and humanity?
Yeah, it gives me a different perspective than, what most people do. Being an FBI agent was an honor, and, some of my best friends are still FBI agents and some of them are retired. Great retirement, retired society. They're called Society of Retired Agents here in Montana. Great guys that I have gotten to know, guys and gals and ladies, and spectacular group of people. And, it's a very exclusive club. There's not that many. In the year that I applied in 2002, it was 1 year after 9/11. I applied. There was somewhere around 52,000 applicants. I was one of 849 that was accepted that year. So I'm very honored and humbled to be part of such an exclusive and great group of people. But yet, and that experience and all the people that I've met and worked with has given me a different perspective on, life and how to move through life and how to, run my company and how to raise my kids. So yeah, everything, every step of the way, I learned something new. Being in the FBI, every step of the way, every squad, it was an experience that led me to here. And, I'm super grateful. And then the people here of Bozeman have been, our friends are spectacular. The companies that we work with are spectacular. And we don't say, there isn't, we worked with local companies here and, small businesses here, we assist them. So we're not just exclusive to saying, hey, you have to be, this this net worth for us to be able to have a conversation. Now listen, you need our help. We'll give you the help. That's for us. That's important.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to helping you with your event, and I'll put everything in the description, links to where to find you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Anything else anyone should know about you, or anything you guys are looking for in the community?
No, listen, if anybody needs to reach out to us, we're at brunnersierragroup.com. And I have a Substack also where I occasionally will start talking about it, different topics of the things that are going on in the community. I'm open for discussion, and, I enjoy, coming on in podcasts like this and, giving back to the community and letting people know, because, FBI agents are such a small crew, by giving a voice to the agents and saying, we're not just, you know, the majority of people in this country, what their vision of an FBI agent is what they see in the movies. We always wear raid jackets. We always have an earpiece, and that's completely false. That's the movies. I've yet to find one TV show that accurately depicts an FBI agent. 90% of my day was behind a computer. I wore a raid jacket less than one. I can count on 3 fingers. I can count how many times I wore a raid jacket. And we never walked into a scene saying, we're the FBI, we're taking over. It was working with great. So I want to, give back and give a voice to us, and, work with the community, and we're excited. So if you need to reach out, please reach out to us on brunnersierragroup.com via the Substack, or, if Montana Mule, he's got my number here. So we're super happy to coordinate with anybody.
Cool. And you prefer Dan or Daniel?
Dan is perfect. Yeah,
Cool.
Dan's fine.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate you.
Thank you very
Thanks
much
for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, folks. You can find the full blog post for every episode, along with key takeaways and links, at mountain-mule.com. If you haven't yet, consider following the show. That one small action helps these Montana businesses get seen, grow, and thrive, and it helps this podcast keep going too. If you know a business that would be a good fit for the show, we'd love to hear from you. Just reach out through the website or social. Thank you for supporting these Montana businesses. See you on the next show.